Welcome to the podcast. Let's dive into the current turmoil in the Middle East, specifically the chaos unfolding in Israel, where Iran's missile strikes are really putting the country's long-standing reputation to the test.
Absolutely, it's a fascinating yet deeply troubling scenario. So, we're talking about a country known for its military prowess now facing unprecedented vulnerabilities, right?
Yup, exactly. Israel's economy is suffering, because ongoing conflicts have strained its resources, while a series of missile attacks from Iran expose weaknesses in their defenses. It's like a shock to the system.
And it's interesting because, on one hand, you've got an enemy showing a more aggressive side, but on the other, there are internal issues that are just compounding the instability.
Right. And the economic downturn isn't just about lost revenue from war, it's about how prolonged conflict can erode internal confidence in the government, and specifically in leadership like Netanyahu's.
Indeed, when leaders are seen as unable to protect or stabilize, it naturally shakes public trust. Yeah.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is the dual nature of the situation. On one hand, Iran appears to be rallying its internal unity against external threats despite its own domestic issues, while on the other, Israel's perceived invincibility is being shattered.
I've noticed even younger generations, especially in the US, are now questioning the traditional US Israel alliance more critically.
Yeah, it's like the old narrative is, Israel, the unbreakable fortress. But now, with these missile strikes and economic pressures, that narrative is being blown apart.
That makes me wonder, though, could there be a possibility that the reaction in Israel is being exaggerated by some media? Or is it like genuinely reflective of a deep shift on the ground?
That's a good point. I think it's both. We have clear evidence of economic strain and military vulnerability on the one hand, and then there's a broader global sentiment that's beginning to question and even criticize the traditional alliances. So, it's a two-pronged issue.
Yeah, it almost feels like a perfect storm. Economic instability, political discontent, and a damaged military reputation all rolled into one.
Exactly. And then there's the whole Trump factor. His military actions, or rather his rhetoric about possible force, are polarizing matters even further.
True, Trump's involvement adds another layer, but isn't there a risk that his aggressive stance could backfire by fueling more unrest both domestically and abroad?
Absolutely. It's like, throwing gasoline on a fire. Some argue that while decisive leadership is needed, overly aggressive military moves might actually undermine support at home and internationally.
Yeah, I get that. But don't you think there's also a danger like that if Israel doesn't show strength, it might encourage more such moves from Iran?
That's definitely the counterargument. However, the current missile strikes seem to reveal that even Israel's supposed military superiority has cracks. Its economy and political support are visibly faltering under pressure.
I can see that perspective, though I wonder if this vulnerability might be overstated. After all, Israel has rebuilt from setbacks before.
That's a fair challenge. Sure, resilience is part of Israel's identity, but the scale and timing here, especially with the domestic unrest and economic issues, could indicate an even more systemic problem.
Right. And speaking of domestic unrest, it's interesting how Iran is dealing with its own internal issues by uniting under the banner of external threat.
Exactly. Iran is leveraging nationalism to divert attention from its own economic and political struggles, which is a classic move. But it also means that their military might and those missile capabilities coming into play have far reaching implications.
Yeah, it's like, in Iran's case, the external aggression is a tool for internal consolidation, which then ironically backfires on their adversaries like Israel.
Correct. And this brings us to another key point: the shifting global political landscape. There's a noticeable decline in the influence of the traditional Israel lobby, and younger Americans seem to be more critical of long-standing US Israel relations.
That's something that really marks a departure from decades of policy. When a whole generation starts to question something so fundamental, it signals a potential paradigm shift.
Yup, it's like the bedrock assumptions of regional security are being reevaluated, and this, combined with the apparent failures of military deterrence in the face of new unconventional attacks, really changes the game.
It almost sounds like history is rewriting itself, huh? A country once seen as a paragon of military strength is now grappling with economic and political vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And it's also about perception. The global narrative about Israel is shifting from one of near invincibility to a more nuanced and, frankly, less flattering picture.
Yeah, and this shift in perception could have major ramifications for international alliances and the overall stability in the region.
Absolutely. Oh, it's like, a domino effect. One weakness exposed, say, by these missile attacks, can lead to a cascade of political and economic challenges.
Which brings us back to Netanyahu. His personal popularity and political support are now on the line. A leader who was once beyond reproach is now facing serious scrutiny.
Exactly. And it's interesting to see how public sentiment might shift. Given the internal chaos and external pressures, even long-standing support might not be enough to weather the storm.
Yeah, and while some might argue that Israeli resolve will eventually prevail, others see it as a tipping point. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. Resilience is baked into the national character, but so are the repercussions of prolonged conflict. It's like trying to mend a ship that's taken on too many leaks under heavy storm conditions.
That's a vivid analogy, though I'd respectfully challenge that a bit. Aren't there historical precedents where countries bounce back even after severe setbacks?
Sure, and that's a great counterpoint. History is replete with instances of resurgence, but the scale of today's technological and geopolitical pressures might make it a tougher climb this time around.
Right? And while resilience is admirable, the ever-changing nature of modern warfare, cyber, economic, and conventional, creates an entirely different battlefield than before.
Exactly, it's like, upgrading the difficulty level in a video game. Israel is facing challenges that are not just physical, but also digital and financial, and that complexity really spices things up.
Yep. And that brings us back to the global aspect. With innovative platforms and data-driven strategies emerging, how do you see international responses influencing this crisis?
Well, internationally, there's a lot of uncertainty. Some nations might withdraw support or re-examine their alliances. Younger Americans and critical global voices are starting to question, and this could lead to a more balanced, if less predictable, world order.
Which really underlines how interconnected economic, military, and political spheres have become. One missile strike isn't just about immediate effects. It can ripple out and reshape policy on a global level.
Exactly. It's a cascading effect. One event leads to another, and before you know it, you've got widespread uncertainty and a lot of heated debate in international forums.
And speaking of heated debates, there's plenty of criticism about using aggressive military rhetoric as a tool for political leverage, something that seems to be at play with the discussions around Trump's interventions.
Right. Trump's actions, or rather his proposals, are seen by many as a double-edged sword. On one side, they project an image of strength, but on the other, they risk alienating key allies and inflaming the situation further.
It's a fine line. Overplaying military might can easily turn into an unwanted escalation, especially with a volatile mix of economic distress and domestic discontent in the region.
Exactly, and that, in essence, encapsulates the chaos. Israel stands at a crossroads where its long-held image is under siege from both internal vulnerabilities and external pressures, making every decision potentially historic.
Absolutely. It's an evolving situation that not only redefines regional power dynamics but also challenges established global narratives.
Yup, and while it's difficult to foresee all the outcomes, one thing is for sure. It's a reminder that no nation is truly impervious to the complexities of modern warfare and political change.
A sobering thought indeed, and one that calls for closely watching how these tensions will reshape the coming years.
Precisely, and as always, it pays to stay informed and critically consider every angle of these multifaceted issues.
Well said. Thanks for the deep dive into such a nuanced topic today. It certainly gives us a lot to think about regarding global stability and the interdependent nature of modern geopolitics.
My pleasure. Let's continue to observe and discuss, as these events remind us that history is continuously in the making, even amidst chaos.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.